Good evening, friends. I hope you're all well tonight and that the topics I made keep you full enough for this very entertaining presentation about supporting materials that we find in professional speaking. When you think of supporting materials in a professional setting, say at work, school, etc., what's the first thing that pops into your mind?
Sometimes people's presentations are like a lot of extra information and they kind of go off on a tangent.
Good. All great examples. Now think of a time when you watched a presentation and thought either, wow, this presentation is a great tool to support the main message, or ouch, these supporting materials are way too much, they're taken away from the presentation. There are many ways that we can make our supporting materials good and bad, and I want to talk about both ends of the spectrum today. First, we have visual sensory aids. You will need to ask yourself, do I need a supporting visual aid for this presentation? Sometimes, if the message is simple enough, adding a PowerPoint presentation or a poster board can be unnecessary and distracting. Our textbook, Business and Professional Communication in the Digital Age, mentions not to use the aid if it is simply to boost the speaker's confidence or is used as a type of crutch. Don't worry, that isn't what I'm doing here tonight. Anyway, after you've decided that you do need visual aids in your presentation, the next thing to verify is that when mentioning the sources, you're giving credit where credit's due. This is exactly what our universities are talking about when they preach over and over, do not plagiarize or else you will be expelled. When speaking and citing sources, it's a little bit different than how we would cite sources in a student paper. First, I like to start a citation with where I'm getting the source from or who quoted it. For example, if I'm quoting a professor from our school, I might say, Professor Mary Raymond from Siena Heights University mentioned in our class discussion, and then directly insert her quote verbatim. Or sometimes it may be more appropriate to paraphrase, and in that case, we still need to make sure we're mentioning the source for whom we're quoting, either before or after we do so. Additionally, when we're trying to find our sources to make our work credible, we need to consider quite a few things. First being, how can I find credible and reliable sources? Usually your school's library can give you access to hundreds of scholarly articles, journals, books, etc. that can make your presentation stand out from others. And don't be that person that pulls up Google, searches a vague topic, and chooses the first topic that's a .com website. Websites that end in .com cannot be taken as factual and credible sources. They do not have anything that backs up what they're saying. It's a better choice to choose topics that end in .edu, .org, or .gov. After we've made sure that the work we're choosing to cite is credible, creating a visual aid that's helpful for the audience, simple, and aesthetically pleasing is key. Different types of visual aids that are popular are graphs, charts, tables, digital slides, physical representation, and videos. Our textbook, Business and Professional Communication in a Digital Age, mentions a great example. They say that even though digital presentations and social media are most common these days, there are still in-person displays where different types of visual sensory aids are useful. For example, there could be a company that's selling campers at an expo show. They could create a simple yet eye-pleasing display including poster boards, prototypes, company swag, and videos of their campers being displayed or used. They could even walk the prospective customers through one of their campers while giving the presentation, and that would be a simple yet effective approach to a sensory aid. When choosing which information to include, if there are a lot of numerical facts and or statistics, a graph, chart, or table may be wise to include or display. Our textbook, Communicating for Results, says to eliminate statistics that are not absolutely necessary, as this can become too detailed and they're not usually something listeners will remember. Next, they say, round off statistics to an easy number and also to present statistics in a graphic form when possible. Doing these things will make the numbers stand out and are easier to remember. The audience will get bored if we go on and on about numbers that we don't have too much of an impact on the actual topic. I've included an example of what these charts may look like. You can see from afar that they don't have large numbers, they all end in zeros, and they're not too large of numbers, and it's very eye-pleasing. Jumping on to the next item, using videos along with audio aids when used correctly can help the audience further understand your presentation. We need to make sure that we're not including videos that are far too long and take away from our presentation. What would you do if you're watching your presentation and someone shows a 20-minute video about the topic? In most cases, it's more appropriate to include short videos or even snippets of longer videos. These show the audience what they need to see, then allow us to carry on with the presentation without skipping a beat. When including these in a PowerPoint presentation, be sure to provide credit to the makers of the video or where you obtained the video from. Next, let's discuss verbal supporting materials. I mentioned earlier how we need to make sure the visual aids that we're using are from credible sources. This will be exactly the same for verbal materials. Always give credit where credit is due. This not only honors the person whose work we're citing, but it provides credibility to the subject. When providing credibility verbally, we can use a few different examples. One being, include expert opinions in your presentation. When we provide the ideas of experts in a field, we're showing the audience that there are other qualified individuals who may think a certain way or have proved one thing or another about our topics. Also, communicating for results made the point that if at any point we feel the audience could get confused on why we're using an expert or how it relates to the topic, it is best to specifically add, I'm using this quote because, or I cited blank because of this. Our textbook, Communicating for Results, also mentioned how explanations and comparisons are also great verbal supporting materials to use in a presentation. An explanation is when someone describes a relationship between certain items, defines a term or word, or gives instructions on how to do something. While a comparison shows similarities or differences between something the listeners already know. While using these may be a basic strategy, when used right, they can provide necessary information to the audience. Now that we've discussed the most useful and important supporting materials, I want to jump back to the topic of using digital slides. Since digital communication has become so popular, most people will create presentations using a software like Microsoft PowerPoint or similar. It's easy for these slides to become messy and overstimulating, which can lead to the audience losing interest in the presentation altogether. Now, to avoid this, keeping the slides simple and clean is key. Our textbook, Communicating for Results, says, using too many slides, too much text, too many colors, too many typefaces, or repetitive sounds distracts from your message. When creating slides, less is usually more. The University of Nebraska-Lincoln published a helpful article for the general guidelines of creating a presentation. And here are their tips. Generally, no more than 6 words a line. Generally, no more than 6 lines a slide. Use large font when trying to emphasize important information. Font sizes anywhere from 18 to 48 point. Using a margin or a border around the outside with blank space will allow for easier readability. When it comes to color, follow these guidelines. Using contrasting colors for the background and text will enhance the readability of the slide. Additionally, while PowerPoint and other software allow flashy transitions and fly-ins, they get old and can take away from the core information in the presentation. Your audience begins to look more at the transitions rather than what's being presented. When choosing to add images to the presentation, there are ways to do it tastefully to enhance the understanding from the audience. When choosing these images, they should follow the below criteria. They should be of good resolution, they shouldn't be too busy, and your audience should be able to easily relate the picture to the topic of the presentation. Once you've created the slides and they meet all of the above criteria, make sure to test all of this out on the screen where you'll be doing the presentation. Test runs are crucial to the success. Technical difficulties aren't rare and can definitely happen, even if you've tested everything out beforehand. Deciding to have a plan B is encouraged, like printing out a copy of your slides or being able to include a physical object to help support your point. I've also given a speech before where I had a PowerPoint presentation and I inserted hyperlinks that navigated to a URL on the web. I had tested them out prior to giving the presentation on my own computer, but then when I was sharing my screen in my class, my hyperlinks weren't working for some reason. I definitely learned a valuable lesson of testing and making sure everything in the PowerPoint works with all technology that you'll be using for the actual presentation, not just on your own computer. So now that we've reviewed the do's and don'ts of the PowerPoint slide, let's review some together. Help me pick out the good and bad of these slides and see if we can figure out what's going on with them. So this first one, when you take a look at it, what is not pleasing to look at?
The writing.
The color and the size of the font is hard to read and really small. And then there's like a little picture in the bottom that's a lot of information in a tiny little place.
A lot of words on each line as well.
A lot of words, yep, for sure.
Can't really see it.
The background is very distracting.
It's too busy,
the
right?
title.
I'm just looking at the guy cutting the grass. I'm not really
It's a good looking
seeing the words.
Yeah. And this little graphic here is
It's too
covering up
small.
our words, so we can't even read what it says. Great. Next, I forgot that it had a transition, which we're not supposed to.
Transitions are not good.
How about this one? Ways to make your wife mad.
It's not capitalized. Pudding is not capitalized.
Great. I was wondering if someone would catch that.
There's like multiple font sizes,
Cover
like the
the words.
subcategories.
Yeah,
Larger
cover up
one
the
and a
words
smaller
again.
one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The pictures are sort of overlapping and
Taken away from the
yeah.
Busy.
cluttered.
Awesome. What's that?
Clutter like the laundry basket.
Yeah. Alright. Now this next one. Does this one look bad or good in your opinion?
Good.
I like it. It's got
That is a good slide.
you know,
It's got spunk.
Yeah.
rounded percentages, not many words.
Clear
It
what
leaves,
you're trying to put out.
yeah,
What your message is.
exactly. And it leaves a lot for the speaker to be able to say without the slide giving it away and without the readers having to concentrate on reading what's in the slide. Great. Now that we have a deeper understanding of what to do and what not to do with PowerPoint presentations, I truly hope you all learned a thing or two for your next presentation. A few things to remember. Verbal and visual supporting materials can be crucial to making your presentation a success. Remember to properly cite your sources to avoid plagiarizing. Give credit where credit is due. That's the third time I've said that, so make sure you're giving credit. Doing this only enhances your presentation because using expert opinions and advice adds credibility. I truly appreciate you all being here today to participate in my presentation. Thank you all and have a great night.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.